was with G.Loomis for 12 years after I sold. I had prostate cancer. So they gave me 18 months to live. My accountant said, if you want anything for the wife and the family, you better sell it while you're alive. So I sold the gun barrel. I had a graphite gun barrel company. I had a fishing camp in Russia for Atlantic salmon. I had a golf company and G.Loomis, and I sold them. Everybody kept calling me up and saying, we want the good stuff back. And so I started making some of them in blanks because I had all of the equipment. And then all of a sudden they wanted, company came by that started a new magazine called Salmon Steelhead Journal in Portland, Oregon. Good friend of mine. He wanted one for catching Chinook salmon in the Columbia River with herring. I said, well, that's great. As far as I know, there's never been a rod designed for that. He said, well, why do you think I want that for my first shootout? So I says, well, I don't make rods, but I can make you a blank. He said, no, we don't have a blank in the contest. We have a rod in the contest. So at that time, our company was under North Fork Composite, because I live on the North Fork of the Lewis River. And that's the reason I live there is because it's the best summer run steelhead within about 150 miles. And so I went ahead and made the blank. But what I had to do is get my best guides that fished Chinook salmon in the Columbia River with herring and find out exactly what we need. And he says, well, we need something because we probably only have 30% of the bites stay with it. Other than that, they bite it once, it scares them, and they move off. And he says, we probably only have about a 30 to a 40% hook to catch ratio, because what happens is when they do bite it, you're pulling it right straight out of their mouth when you're hooking it. And then what they do is they sit there and do this and back off from your trolling, and your rods are so stiff they either rip or tear the hooks out just backing up. So they was using probably an 8.5 foot fairly stiff rod, because some of these fish get 40 pounds. And so we started to figure out what we needed, and it ended up being a 10.5 foot rod, very moderate in action. That way there, when the fish come up and bit it, it was almost like biting a regular herring, because they didn't have a lot of resistance, because the rod would give right rhythm, but it would come back enough to make them fight for the fish. And then it was long enough that when they finally decided they'd take it, they turned it and would swim off, and you'd hook them this way instead of trying to pull it right out of their mouth. Well, the catch ratio went up to about 85 or 90% too. Needless to say, I won that shootout. And then they had 2 more within the year, and I won both of those. And they was all under North Fork Composites. So now all of a sudden, everybody calls me on the phone and said, hey, we want one of those rods, and the one that won the second one. And I said, no, I don't make rods. I just make blanks. No, I saw them in the magazine. So that's where Edge started. so we had to start a rod company. So that's Edge. You take 10-pound tests, you wrap it around your hands, you hold them out here. I don't think any of us can break them. But we do that, we can break it easy. So what really breaks these fish off is the shock, not the pull. So what I've really learned to do over the years is to take the shock, give them the power in the butt, but take the shock out of a faster action rod. Instead of getting this, I get this. And that way there, I've still got the power to move the fish, but I don't have that shock that wants to snap them off when you jerk. Because you know as well as I do, the lighter the line you fish, the more hookups you're going to get. And so if you have a rod that will protect that snapping, then you're going to catch more fish with lighter line, you're going to hook more fish, and it's the way to go. I told it once, but I'll tell it again because I think it's that important. And that's the efficiency of taking the weight out of this part of your rod. Whether it's in the design of the blank, the modulus of the material, the finish on the blank, the guides, the size of the guides, the weight of the guides, the thread, the finish, anything I can do to take weight out of that, I improve your distance, your accuracy, and sensitivity of that rod. So you take a diving board, that's kind of the easiest to explain it, and you jump on a diving board, it recovers, it throws you so far, it oscillates so long, and it stops. This oscillation is the remainder of energy that was not discharged. If all the energy was discharged, it'd go and stop. So now if I turn around and, like I told you, put more guides on it, more finish on it, more thread on it, and everything else, it's like taking that diving board and tying 50 pounds under the diving board. So now I jump on the diving board and load the diving board. It doesn't throw me as far because it has to throw me and the 50 pounds. The weight makes it oscillate a longer period of time, showing you it did not discharge a high percentage of energy. Well, a lot of us, when we're casting, we look at where we're casting, but we don't take a look at our rod tip. And if that rod tip is doing this more, when that rod tip is doing this and the line's going through the rod tip, guess what the line's doing? Going through the air. Now you can't tell me that it was going to go as far and as straight going through the air like this as it would go through like this. As you hold on to it good. As you pull up on this blank, you can still see you've got a lot of power down in here, but you don't have a fast area. It's a fast action blank, but you don't have that real fast area for it to come like this. That's what gives that snap. Most companies have a straight tapered mandrels. Okay, now they may be like this, they may be like this, they may be like this. This will make more of a parabolic action, this will make a fast action, this will make an extra fast. My mandrels go like this, like this, like this. So I get the optimum wall thickness diameter bending load throughout the whole end of the blank. And that's how you can get the efficiency of catching big fish on light line. The first thing I do is take the size of guides that need to be on the rod and I weigh them. And then I weigh everybody's guides. Weight is almost number one because you buy the rod for performance. I mean, if a guide should wear out, it doesn't take nothing to strip the guide off and put another guide on it, especially on my blanks because I got no finish on them. I can cut that off, take that off. You won't even know there was a guide there and put another guide right back on it. But on the recoil guides, I have not found any wear on them or anything. But they're the lightest guides out there. There's no guides that are any lighter. The trouble is they're awful expensive. And it would be nice to have another guide that wasn't quite so expensive, but lightweight. But the thing is, you know, here these are, then here's the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. They just get so heavy. And all you got to do is have two rods made up the same, one with heavy guides, one with light guides, and you'll find out. Spiral guides, this is another thing that we've kind of started and are pushing. Most casting rods for the last 150 years, the guides have been on the top. And traditionally, that's why they should be on the top. Every other reason, they should be spiraled around the blank. On the top of the rod, when you flex the rod, you have to have about a third more guides on the top of the rod to keep the line from touching the blank. But even though you do, as you cast it, the line is hitting that blank and is creating a friction which is slowing it down. Those extra guides add weight out here where you really don't want any weight, but they add weight out here which dampens the recovery and also dampens the sensitivity, because everything that's on that blank, as that sensitivity transfers back to your handle, absorbs more sensitivity the more mass there is out there and the more weight there's out there. So what we do is we spiral them around the blank. If it can bend around that spool, it can take a 180-degree bend in this length of rod. After you cast it a few times and this type of stuff, you all of a sudden say, I can, you know, see it. A lot of times when we're fishing with a casting rod, we're now fishing a lot more synthetic line. It's a lot more supple than the monofilament is, it's always wrapped around our tip. And you have to shake it and shake it and shake it to get it off the tip. But if that tip guide's pointing down, it falls off the tip instead of hanging up on the tip. So that's also real good. So, like I said, traditionally, put the guides on the top. If you want more sensitivity, you want to catch more fish, feel more bites, and everything more efficient, you want to spiral your guides. Graphite, you know, is because of the density and the high modulus of it, it's very sensitive and it transmits sensitivity. That's why your graphite rods are so much more sensitive than glass. They're stronger than cork. They won't pit and chip like cork does. And they add the sensitivity that we've been missing all these years with an insulator on our handle instead of a conductor of sensitivity. The graphite handles are about 30% lighter than cork. They're much more durable than cork. Needless to say, is denser. It doesn't pit, doesn't chip. I don't think you have the problem here, but in a lot of places in the world, it freezes. That cork gets a little wet, freezes on the top, it's like popsicle. This will never absorb moisture, so you can just wipe it off and it's perfectly dry and it doesn't freeze. And if you grab onto one of these handles, just hold it for about 5 or 10, 15 seconds, and you'll feel it's not cold anymore. Just move it down to here and you say, oh, that's cold. Move it up here, it's not cold anymore. But it doesn't overheat. You can lay it out in the sun and it does the same thing. You get a hold of it, you shade it, and it dissipates right down to the temperature of your hand. It's less slippery when it's wet. If you get a whole bunch of fish slime on you and that type of stuff with cork, you know how slippery it gets. Take a wet sponge and put it on one of these and wipe it on it, and you'll see that it's less sticky. If you're out, you know, and it's pretty hard to be out fishing and not be a little bit sweaty or whatever, or wet or whatever, and it's less slippery than cork. It's much lighter. We have graphite bushings under this that goes directly to the blank, a little bit more sensitive. This handle here, we have what we call a spider hard, dense, closed cell foam that we have under this that goes right straight to the blank, and we can contour this any way we want, and then we put the graphite over the top of it so that we can get a kind of a contour, because a lot of people like contour. But this handle is less expensive than this handle is. That's the most sensitive handle that we can build at this time. So that's the difference between the two. This handle also, if you look down this handle, you see how the handle is offset? See how it sets off, the handle sets off like that? Okay, that's because I want the reel lower down. The reason that they've went from these round reels to these low profile reels is to get that reel down. But I want to get it down even lower. I want to get it so it cradles in my hand and it's not up there turning back and forth while I'm cranking it. So this is what I've done, is by lowering that down and raising it up. Plus, when you reach up to get the spool, to release the spool, don't have to reach up, you just reach straight ahead. But I think the best part of the whole thing is, with a straight reel seat, you fish like this all day. This here is 15-degree offset, so you come back like that. You don't get that hyperextension all day fishing, and you just don't get as tired in your wrist area by cranking it back. Other than that, it's just like any other rod, except for the material, the resin system, the design, and the manufacturing processes.